We have for you this morning a scene of domestic bliss. See the housewife preparing her husband's breakfast in the morning. Doing the correct chores that a woman should do in the house. And doing them correctly, I'm glad to say. Look at that. Look how happy she is with the smell of that coffee. What do you think of that, Mr. Chumley Warner? Oh, gosh, that's a bit of a mess, isn't it? What? You'll have to get the Hoover out and sort that out later, won't you, dear?
Best china.
And the best china, of course, the best china. Yes,
Oh.
yes.
Except I haven't put the coffee on yet.
But you should always remove seaweed from the best china before passing one's coffee. Pouring one's coffee, passing one's coffee. Okay, so look, here we are. That's what's that place called over there? That's Newquay. That's the Cornish Newquay, as opposed to the Welsh one. Notice the water poured in with a flourish. I'm sure her mother taught her very well. Let's see if we could do this without setting fire to everything. There, the washing up has been done. And only a slight residue of suntan oil has been left on the inside of the cup. To go with whatever the other... Which was the one you put the rooibos in, because that's definitely not the cup that I want. Anyway, look, here we go. Yesterday, we came in here... no, not yesterday. Well, yes, technically yesterday, in the very early hours of yesterday morning, we got in here, yeah, about 3:30, I suppose.
Yes.
And had what we thought was going to be a very restful day in Newquay, waiting for the wind. Unfortunately, Newquay is not a restful town. It's incredibly noisy. As most other people know, yeah. It was incredibly noisy and busy, and pubs going, and I mean keeping pole out of the bars, and it was just the police were involved, and you know, and in the end we just thought, no, sorry Lindy, I had to get him out of that town for you. All right, he was causing mayhem, getting into fights with rugby teams, and you know, all this kind of stuff. So we've decided that we're determined to make progress today. And as you can see so far, it's now 7:10. That's the progress we've made. I hope you're impressed.
Yes.
And we're going to have breakfast on board. And we're just going to wait for any little puff of wind that comes along. And we're going to go that way. And I don't know if you can see it, but there's a headland up there in the mist. And if we can get round that, then we can get ourselves into, what's the place called? Padstow. Where we're hoping for a altogether better class of holidaymaker, and perhaps a mooring that will keep us a bit further away from them rather than like totally surrounded by them as we were yesterday. There we go.
Yes. Waves.
I'm gonna, oh dear, wash. Right, hold the cooker. What we did do, which was advantageous. Look at the mess you've made there. Look at this.
No, that wasn't me.
Gosh, you better get that sorted out before your husband comes home. What was I saying? Oh yeah, we got some leaks sorted out, so it wasn't all bad. We bought a tube of sealant and just sorted out a little dribble that we had coming in one of the hatches. Met Jane, of course, and sorted out the two bottom rudder pintles, which were just moving about a little bit. Yeah. So, you know, it's an altogether healthier ship.
General maintenance.
Yeah. Okay, that'll do us.
we're going to have some coffee.
Back now to the studio. Action. Can't hear you, by the way. Right, here we are.
Yes, here we are.
At Port Isaac.
Port Isaac?
Otherwise known.
Well, I know it. I've been here before. Well, I've never actually been here.
But it's as if we have.
Yes, it is.
Because if you look up there,
Yeah.
you will see a schoolhouse.
Yeah.
And if you look over there,
Yeah.
if I hold the camera still enough, the smaller of those stone houses on the cliff, so pretty much directly above and slightly to the right of the life rings on the fishing boat next to us. You may recognise that small house there, and you may recognise that general beach view
Oh, look, the R and the live people are coming out again.
as being the home of Doc Martin.
Doc Martin.
This is, I don't think he had that, well, he didn't have that accent at all. He had a big posh middle class accent, didn't he? But, yes, so anyway, that's where we're at. It does look a little different to how it looks on telly, I have to say, but you know, it's all here. We haven't been in town yet.
No.
So
For various reasons.
yes, for various reasons, more of which later.
Yes.
Okay, and let's be clear at this point, no blame is going to be attached to anybody.
For the anchor that was lost.
of which more later. But before that, yesterday, the battery ran out on this, didn't it? We were anchored up at, I think it was Fistral Beach, but if it wasn't Fistral, then one of the beaches in that area of Newquay. The wind had switched off, sun was going down, it was all very pretty, quite romantic really.
It was. Yeah, we did have a moment there, didn't we?
Did we have a moment? Well, I didn't.
Yes.
You might have done.
It was a beautiful moment.
Oh, it was. Did you have? Pole had a beautiful moment.
Watching the sun go down.
I'm not going to.
Below the sea.
I'm not going to look at the sunset in the same way ever again. So anyway, after Pole's beautiful moment,
yes,
we did try to record something, I think, didn't we? And then the battery packed up on this little device. So I don't really know how much, if any, you got. But the plan after that was, and indeed the reality of it was, that we would sail into Newquay, get into Newquay at the top of the tide, and find somewhere to park up in Newquay Harbour within the walls of the harbour itself.
Yes.
And that's basically what happened, except it took how many hours to do? Must have been 7 hours or so of nighttime sailing.
We got there about 2:30 in the morning.
I think it was 3:30 actually.
Okay.
Yeah, 3:30 in the morning. It was late. It was tiring. So we found the empty corner of the harbour up near one of the sort of sandy beaches that there are, and it was all nice and quiet when we got in, wasn't it? And
it was. Very small harbour, very old.
We were able to crash out almost immediately. Buried the anchor in the sand, I think, didn't we? Buried the anchor in the sand, and then as the harbour dried out, we got a reasonably comfortable night's sleep. And then next morning we were woken at about 4 or 5 o'clock, so what would that be, about 2 hours later, by the fishermen leaving before the harbour fully emptied.
Yes.
And then after that we thought, well, we'll have a quiet day waiting for the wind in Newquay. And we waited for the wind, but quiet day it definitely was not. There were millions of people there. I mean, it was just packed. And then in the evening...
And also, it was enclosed by very high walls all the way round, and a hot beating sun.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So it was just sweltering.
It was bloody awful, actually. I mean, no, it could have been worse, but...
there was a high point, though.
And the high point was?
Jane arrived.
Ah, yes.
And bought us something we hadn't had yet.
Which was?
Oggies.
Oggies. We had our first oggies. That's right. That's very, very, very true. And they were rather nice, actually.
They were very yummy.
Yeah. And of course, it was nice to catch up with someone who I haven't seen in about 30 years. And for the record, she doesn't look a minute older. And I know that I don't either. What else? What else happened? Oh, was it? We just got a bit, and it got noisy in the evening. I mean, as soon as the kiddies went away off the sandy beach, the teenagers moved in, and it all got noisy and leery.
Music, laughing, yelling, shouting.
And we decided, bugger this for a game of soldiers. We're going to move on, no matter how much or how little wind there is. So we got up very early this morning.
Well, you know, that night before, we wanted to go to bed by about 5 in the evening.
Well, that's true. We could have. Yeah.
We just kept drooping all evening.
So actually, I don't know about you, but I had a good night's sleep on the, you know, the harbour had dried out, so
yes.
We'd faced the boat, so the high end was downhill. We actually had a flat place to sleep for the night. Yeah. And we woke up at about 4 or 5 o'clock, I suppose, and paddled the boat out, pulled the sail up, and then drifted. It was a really gentle sail. There was a couple of times when things got motoring a little bit, wasn't there? But in the main, it was a force 1 to 2 to 0 to 1 to 0 to 1 back to 0 again. And we made decent time to the Camel River estuary.
Yeah.
Got there.
Yes. Ready to.
Thought, well, there's still 3 or 4 hours. We'll go on one stop further.
See whether there was any more places. Have a look.
Found Port Isaac and thought, well, that'll do us. And because I'd seen it on the telly, I knew that it dried out reasonably well, so we'd get ourselves a good anchor. So we came in here, and show you the entranceway. You can't see out of the harbour, but basically there's a fairly narrow wall, so it's almost like a little miniature fjord, I suppose, quite high-sided on both sides. and through that narrow entrance, and then we came in under, I thought, immaculate control.
Yes.
And luffed it up into the wind over there, threw the anchor over the side, and then somebody turned to me and says, I've still got the anchor warp here in my hand. And I'm looking at the anchor down there somewhere. So at the moment our anchor is somewhere underneath where those seagulls are, and we've got to wait for the council to pull the plug out so that we can go and have a look for it and hopefully recover the damn thing, because it's going to make life very difficult if we don't have an anchor, isn't it?
Yes.
Tomorrow, what are we looking at? Try and get up to Barnstaple, you know,
Yeah, potentially
up that
there,
way,
or
and then
further, depending on what the weather's doing.
set ourselves up for a run across the Bristol Channel. Apparently we're going to get a change in weather, but we don't really know because we haven't had a weather forecast, because we don't have any phone signal of any kind down here, do we, at the moment? Or do we? So,
Well, I don't know.
yeah, we'll have a hunt and see what we can find. Anyway, the other excitement is that the RNLI have been out. I don't think it was anything particularly life-threatening or urgent.
Well, there's a whole load of them going out now.
So maybe it's turned into a training run, who knows. But there we go, Port Isaac, in the sunshine. So we failed to mention earlier the thing that we were going to mention later, which is the small issue of the anchor thrown over the side with no warp attached to it. Well, the warp was attached, to be fair, the warp was attached, but the knot was, what should we say, inadequate? So we've had to wait about 3 hours for the tide to go down far enough to recover it, but recover it we have done.
Very successful.
And it was where you expected it to be?
Yeah, it was actually already out the water.
There we go. So, Dad, your anchor is safe for future use.
Well, we haven't got back yet.
Well, okay, but it's safe for now. Right, there we go. Back to the studio.